You feel the familiar heavy cramps begin, but there are no pharmacies, no sanitary pads, and no private bathrooms to retreat to. You are walking miles across a harsh, unforgiving savanna, sharing every moment of your day with 20 other active tribe members. Modern biology has trained you to see this exact physical experience as a completely unavoidable standard monthly routine that you must endure. But for 99% of human history, a menstrual cycle was not a monthly burden. It was actually a highly managed, rare biological event. In a life of constant physical survival, bleeding was completely different. Today, an average modern woman will experience around 450 cycles. Yes, 450 menstrual cycles in her lifetime. This massive number is something we simply accept as normal human biology today. But if you were a prehistoric hunter-gatherer, your ancient body operated on an entirely different, incredibly efficient evolutionary timeline designed for harsh environments. Anthropologists estimate that ancient women experienced only about 160 cycles in their entire lives. That is a massive, shocking biological difference. How could this be possible? Why did your prehistoric ancestors experience so few menstrual cycles compared to women living in modern societies today? The answer comes down to the brutal, beautiful reality of Paleolithic survival. Your body was constantly managing incredibly scarce resources and high physical demands. You do not sit at a desk. Your ancient body is extremely lean, carrying almost no excess fat as you travel across the landscape. You spend your days walking endlessly, foraging for tough wild tubers, and carrying heavy loads of food and tools across very uneven terrain. Anthropologist Richard Borshay observed the Juhuansi people in the 1960s, revealing that a forager's lifestyle requires immense and continuous physical energy output. This extreme high daily activity and historically low body fat physically altered your internal biological clock. Your survival mechanisms prioritized energy over regular reproduction. While a modern girl might see her first cycle at 12 years old, your prehistoric ancestor faced an entirely different biological reality. For a modern girl, the biological clock often triggers around age 12. But for your prehistoric ancestor, this process was dramatically delayed. In the harsh reality of the Paleolithic world, you likely would not experience your first cycle until your late teens, perhaps around 16 or 18. Because your body is incredibly smart. It simply refuses to spend precious, life-saving calories on reproduction until you are completely ready. To sustain a safe pregnancy, a woman needs significant fat reserves. In a world of constant foraging and freezing winters, those reserves take years to build. This is not a biological flaw. It is an ultimate evolutionary safeguard designed to keep you and your future offspring alive in a dangerous environment. But late puberty is only the beginning. There is a much bigger primary reason why you bleed so rarely compared to modern women today. If you survive into adulthood, your life becomes a continuous cycle of creating and sustaining the next generation of your hunter-gatherer tribe. Simply put, you are almost always pregnant or nursing. And in the Stone Age, nursing is vastly different from what we see in modern society. Breastfeeding is not just a brief 6-month phase. Anthropological data shows that ancient mothers typically nursed each child for 3 to 4 consecutive years. 3 to 4 years of constant milk production requires a massive amount of daily caloric energy, pulling resources away from the rest of your body. Scientists call this powerful evolutionary mechanism lactational amenorrhea, which essentially hits a giant pause button on your monthly cycle to protect your surviving body. By suppressing ovulation while you are nursing a toddler, your body ensures you do not get pregnant again too quickly while resources are already stretched incredibly thin. This brilliantly spaces out childbirths, giving each vulnerable infant a much higher chance of surviving the brutal prehistoric elements without competing for your breast milk. Between a delayed puberty, multiple pregnancies, and years of continuous breastfeeding, your reproductive system spends most of your life entirely locked down. Menstrual cycle is not a monthly expectation. It is a rare anomaly. But when it finally does arrive, how do you handle it in the wild? What happens on those rare occasions when your cycle does arrive? Picture a typical day out on the open, exposed, prehistoric grassland. You are constantly on the move, gathering food and tracking herds. In this environment, the scent of blood can easily attract dangerous, hungry predators. You cannot simply stop moving, and you cannot risk an infection. So you must turn to the prehistoric wilderness to find a practical solution. Archaeological consensus and extensive cross-cultural studies of modern hunter-gatherers suggest you would utilize the environment's most incredibly absorbent and highly accessible natural materials. Walking near a damp riverbed, you reach for soft, dried sphagnum moss. This amazing plant acts exactly like a natural, highly effective prehistoric sponge. Sphagnum moss is not just highly absorbent. It naturally contains mild antibacterial properties that actively help keep you safe from deadly infections in the wild. You might also gather handfuls of soft, crushed, dry grasses, weaving them into a simple, temporary pad that can be easily discarded as you travel. Perhaps you rely on soft, well-worn pieces of animal hide. These small leather scraps are durable, flexible, and completely reusable for your continuous journey. At the end of a long, exhausting day of foraging, these tough hide pads can simply be washed out in the cold, rushing river water. After washing them thoroughly, you hang these small leather pieces near the warm campfire to dry overnight, making them perfectly ready for the next day. There are no private, enclosed bathroom stalls to hide in. You share this entire practical process openly with the other women and children in your tribe. Anthropologist James Suzman notes in his research that hunter-gatherer societies are practically adapted to the brutal, unedited realities of their harsh natural environment. There is no modern stigma, no deep societal shame, and absolutely no need to secretly hide your biological reality from the people you survive with. It is deeply resourceful, it is undeniably rough, and it requires constant manual effort. But these natural, ancient methods keep you moving and alive. Your ancient body handles this rare biological event with the exact same ruthless, incredible efficiency it uses to survive freezing winters and terrifying predators. For hundreds of thousands of years, this rugged system kept humanity alive. But around 12,000 years ago, everything suddenly changed forever. You stop moving. You put down your gathering tools and pick up a farming hoe, settling into the very first permanent agricultural villages. Anthropologist Jared Diamond famously called this agricultural revolution the worst mistake in human history, describing it as a brilliant but highly dangerous evolutionary trap. Your daily diet drastically shifts. Instead of lean wild game and tough roots, you are now consuming massive amounts of carbohydrates from cultivated wheat. Because you are no longer walking miles every day and your caloric intake is stable, your body fat percentage begins to rapidly increase. The ancient biological safeguard that once kept your reproductive system securely locked down is suddenly tricked by this artificial, sedentary abundance of food. Furthermore, with the domestication of animals, mothers begin weaning their children much earlier, replacing years of human breast milk with accessible animal milk. The heavy padlock on your biological clock abruptly snaps open. The natural pause of lactational amenorrhea is broken much sooner than ever before. With higher body fat and much shorter nursing periods, your nervous system receives the ultimate biological signal. It is safe to reproduce constantly. The rare, carefully managed biological event of the freezing ice age suddenly becomes a regular, frequent occurrence in this new settled village life. This marks the exact beginning of a massive evolutionary mismatch. You are running prehistoric biological hardware in a completely new, artificially modified environment. Fast forward to your life today. You likely sit in a comfortable, climate-controlled room, surrounded by an absolute, unprecedented overabundance of accessible food. Because of this constant caloric safety and lack of extreme physical labor, your modern body is continuously preparing for a pregnancy that isn't happening. You are carrying the deep genetic legacy of a lean, constantly moving ice age survivor, but you are fueling it with endless modern calories. The final result? Your body forces you to endure hundreds of extra menstrual cycles that your ancient ancestors were absolutely never designed to experience. Every single time this cycle restarts, your modern body goes through an intense, physically exhausting, and highly energy-draining biological process that it was never built to do constantly. The heavy cramps and pain you feel are essentially your ancient biological machinery working exactly as it was originally designed, contracting muscles to reset. However, because this powerful system was biologically intended to activate only a few dozen times, running it continuously causes immense physical wear and tear. Evolutionary biologists point out that many common modern reproductive health issues stem directly from this massive, unprecedented, and continuous biological cycling in modern women. Today, when it happens, you likely retreat to a private bathroom and rely on modern pharmacies to manage the pain and handle the biology safely. Because it happens so often, modern society has trained you to view this monthly cycle as a biological curse or a frustrating flaw in human design. But the truth is, your body is absolutely not broken. In fact, it is functioning with the exact same terrifying, perfect efficiency it always has. It is the exact same evolutionary hardware that kept your great-grandmothers alive through freezing ice age winters, massive predators, and periods of brutal starvation. You are simply a highly evolved, incredibly resilient prehistoric survivor trying to navigate an alien modern world of endless calories and comfortable desk chairs. For 99% of human history, this was not a burden. It was actually a biological luxury, proving you had enough energy to sustain life. It meant you were not currently pregnant, and that you had successfully weaned your previous child to survive out in the harsh natural elements. It was the ultimate, undeniable physical proof that a prehistoric woman had successfully conquered the wilderness and was ready to create the next generation. The very next time you feel that heavy, dragging exhaustion, remember the incredibly deep, powerful evolutionary journey your physical body has taken. You feel the familiar, heavy cramps begin, but there are no pharmacies, no sanitary pads, and no private bathrooms to retreat to. For your prehistoric ancestors, managing this wasn't a monthly curse. It was a rare biological privilege that proved they had survived long enough to create the future.